Hey there, welcome to part 7 of the Protopie Crash Course. In this video, what we will do is learn how to make some cool animations like this one on Protopie. So the source files for this video are available along with the description, and please feel free to check out designerx.io for a classroom experience for this course with discussions, exercise files and other courses. So what we have here is a simple circular animation and a simple line animation. And if you notice, the animation starts and resets every time you page to that respective layer. And this is a slightly tricky one because we don't have circular animations and this kind of graph animations directly on Protopie. So you need to have a workaround to figure out how to animate something like this. So let's go into our sketch file and see how we have grouped our layers. So I have an artboard 1 that basically leads to the artboard 2 where the animations actually exist. And in artboard 2, we have two groups. We have the circular graph that you see here. And if I move this, if I move graphs, then you have this other line graph which is just hidden behind, and both of them are in one long group that exceeds in horizontal width. And in line graph itself you have a mask, just a container, and in each these are basically paths with a gradient and a border. And the same way for the pink, these are just simply shapes, and I just put them in groups so that these are captured as images. Likewise, for the circular group, if I go back, you have yellow, violet, pink are basically three different circular layers, but they are just like half layers. I've just cut them into half. And these are the tracks with just a little lower opacity, and everything else are just placeholder. So a lot of these concepts you've already learned. So let's go ahead and do that quickly. So I'm going to create a new Protopie file. So now what I'm going to do is import using Command I and select the artboard 1 for the scene 1 and import it, and jump to layer scene 2 and then import the second artboard. And now that we have both artboards in Protopie, all we need to do is tap this command, just tap on T. For the tap interaction, go to jump and jump to scene 2 and slide in, and that works. Let's go into scene 2, and here we have selected the graphs group. And then once we've selected the graphs group, we just need to make it into a scrolling container, paging container, make the direction side, and make sure your group size is limited to the viewport size. And as simple as that, we have our paging animation. Now what we have to do is, there are two things. One, when we start the page, as in when we come from this animation, this page, we need the animation to start at this point. And also it needs to restart every time we come into view. So how do we do this? So I'm going to go into our scene and then take a look at these layers. Now we have yellow, violet and pink, the layers that are actually going to animate, which are going to rotate over here. So at first, what I'm going to do is just create a container, and in this container I'm just going to place it over here and make sure we have the container covering the entire frame. Let's drag this here and then drag it here, and let's call this right half, and we're going to bring all our layers that are going to rotate into this layer. Now with this group, what we can do is add a clipping mask. So you have a clipping mask option here, which is basically clip sub layers. And what it does is, if the layers are outside of the bounds of the group, they get hidden. So when I try and just take this yellow and then try and rotate it by some angle, let's say I rotate it by 80 degrees. Now, let's rotate it by 60 so that you have partly visible, or 40. So as you see here, the rotation is weird, and secondly, the part that is outside of the group gets hidden automatically. So to fix this, let's hit Command Z and go back to our initial state And the solution to this is as simple as fixing the origin. So let's fix the origin to the left center point. So when it rotates along this axis. And we should do this for even violet and pink. And now when you rotate, let's say minus or just say 80 degrees. Now as you see here, the rotation looks perfect. So I'm going to rotate this for say another 60 degrees, and it rotates accordingly and the layers get hidden along the clipping mask. So if you rotate them, say I'm going to go into a circular graph, right house, and I'm going to rotate all of them say 180 degrees. Now all of them move out of the frame and gets hidden and you can't see them at this point. So now to create these animations, it's fairly straightforward. All you have to do is let's create a trigger for start when the page starts, and after the page starts, what we need to do is to rotate. So let's select which layer we want to rotate. We want to rotate yellow, not R. Select on yellow and then tap on rotate. Yeah. And similarly, let's copy this, paste it twice and select violet and pink. And once you've selected these layers, just select them all and then rotate by 180 degrees. So let's go into the preview, and as you see here, the animation looks nice except it's a little fast. So we can just change the duration to 1 second. Oh, it's starting to look nice. Although, how would you continue these animations to the second half? Because the clipping mask is fixed to the left half. Now you need to sync them to the second half. And to do this, what you need to do is create an exact replica on the other side, and you need to sync the animations when this completes so that the next one bleeds into the second half. Let me show you how it's done. So I'm going to create a duplicate of the right half, and I'm going to call it left half. And with the left half layer, I'm going to rename this to yellow left, violet left, and pink left, so that we can differentiate when we make selections. And this left half group, I'm going to drag and put it in the left half of the circular graph group. And let's make sure it's exact so our animations don't look weird. Okay, there's still the bleed on the left, so just move it by 1 pixel. Now as you see here, the 3 layers, the yellow left, violet and pink left, are outside of the group. So let's bring them first into our group so we can make it visible. So let's position them right, and once they are here, we need to make the same effect. Let's rotate it and position it outside the group so that it's hidden, so that we can animate it inside. So I'm going to do this by changing the angle, but first you need to change the origin to the right point. Can you see the origin? Let me select one. No, it's at here. So let's change the origin here so it rotates along this axis, and here, and then I'm going to change the origin here. So after doing this, what I'm going to do is just make it 0, and as easy as that, we've hidden all 3 layers. Now it's all about syncing the animations. So we have this animation and we should have the other animation to follow after that. So let's copy these 3, paste it again, and let's extend this timeline window so you can see. And these 3 animations we just started right after the first animation. So the start delay is 1 second, and when you go into a, oh wait, we need to change to yellow left, and we need to change to violet left, and we need to change to pink left. Now as soon as you do this, you can see here the animation completes a full circle. Now let's play around with the easing to make it look more natural. When I hit Command-Shift-R, as you see here, it stops at this midpoint, but we don't want it to stop. So what we can do is select these 3 layers and change the easing to ease in. So it only eases when it starts. And then for these 3, what we will make is ease out. So when it starts and it ends, it looks like one smooth motion. Let's also change the values. Let's not rotate it by 180. Let's make it say, actually let's make each one different. So it needs to be about, say, 140, and then this can be about 126, and this can be about 138. So this is a smooth motion we are looking for. So similarly, let's create the paging, so let's create the animation for the line graphs. The concept is largely similar, and let's go and select, let me hide this for now, and select our line graph group, and you have two clipping mask layers. Let's first select these two, just make them clipping masks, and let's select our yellow. And what we can do is, on start, we can simply just make the width, it should be here. So we should scale the width of our yellow to 0, and similarly paste our width of pink to 0. So now when you page, you will have no width, and what you can do is simply animate the scale, and after you've made it 0, you will basically animate it for a duration of, say, 1 minute, 1 second, and okay, let's do a small delay of 1 second so that you can see the animation. Okay, scale to, let's see how much to scale. So this would be about the initial width that we have. So we need to scale it to 329. So, and the same one is, let's say pink is at 329, yellow is also at 329. So basically we need to make both with 329. And we have our animation in place. Now let's try and trigger the animation after you complete the paging. Now to do this, what we can do is use the detect condition. And what do we detect? We detect the graph group. So we can detect its scroll position, and okay, we don't have a paging, so it's going to be just scroll. And when we detect the scroll of the graph, then we need to scale this, and at this time we don't need a delay. So let's bring both of these layers to start, and without any delay we will animate these two layers. So as you see here, it starts after the detection of this the scroll of the graphs group happens, but it doesn't restart every single time. So to restart it every single time, we need to first understand at what position of the scroll should we start the animation, so that we can make it exactly trigger this animation every single time and make the animation repeat. So to do this, let's understand a concept called variables. Now variables, as you see here, is basically like a storage box, like a container, which takes multiple values, and these values can change dynamically from any place. So for this scene, let's create a variable called variable1. And what we will do is, when we detect the scroll, we can go here and assign the scroll value to a variable. So let's tap on assign, and let's select variable 1. And in formula, we will go into depths of this in the next few videos, but for now, just select this and tap on plus. And what we need to do, what we need to assign is basically the graph scroll position, so scroll offset. I'm going to say OK, and now when you scroll, you basically, as soon as it detects a scroll, it assigns the scroll value, scroll offset, to this variable. Now you can make this debugger. There's a bug icon open. So what this does is basically makes this visible on the viewport. Now when you scroll it, as you can see, as you scroll, you can see the value in real time. So what happens is, basically at this point it scrolls at 359, which is the Y scroll offset, and the X scroll offset, and at this point it goes back to a 0. So this is a handy way to understand how our scroll positions work and what are the values that it operates with. So to trigger this animation right now, we can use a simple condition and say when the scroll position of graphs is since it's at 359, let's make it say 340. So we want the scroll to start at 340. When it's greater than 340, so let's not make it exactly that point, because if it skips the value, it might not even start. So when it's greater than 340, then what we need to do is to do the scale animation, and let's bring this also inside. So every time it first scales to 0 in 0 duration and then scales out. So every single time you have this animation working. But now there's a small glitch, because after it crosses 340, you can see this go back to 0 and then start again. Now how do we fix this? So there's an easy way to do this, but before that, let's fix our circular animation as well. So we create a similar condition, and in this condition, when it's say lesser than 20, we want to start our circular animation. Now I'm going to delete all of these and then move all our circular animation over here. But the problem with this is when you start, it has this weird animation because it starts from the previous position that you defined and the previous position that it rotated to, and then it continues from there. So we have two problems. We need to fix this and we need to fix this as well. Now to restart this animation, what you can easily do is to just copy all these rotation layers and paste it over here, and then make all of the duration as 0, and then it should start. You just reset the rotation back to 0. But this will cause an error. Let me show you how. And then you reset the initial position to say based on what the initial position is. The reason it will cause an error because at each time the condition is greater than 340. So if it's 341, if it's 342, it's 343, then these rotations will continuously loop in. So you want the rotations to happen only once. So this solution will not work for you. So the other way to do it is through our variables. Also, this is a reusable way of triggering this animation from any point. So let's create a variable for this scene. Basically, we have this only scene, and let's call it start circular graph. So for now, we will assume that when the start circular graph, so we can go and say detect and detect our start circular graph, and we'll put a condition saying if the start circular graph value is 1, then what we need to do is reset all the rotation positions. So I'm going to copy this, paste it, and I'm going to make the duration 0, no delay, and reset all of them to the initial position. So all the yellow left has been rotated by 180 degrees. So let's just rotate it by minus 180 degrees. So this is rotated by 140. So what we need to do is, okay, let's select this and go select minus 140 and minus 126, and this one by minus 138. Similarly, let's go back and rotate all of this in the reverse. Now all I need to do is just copy this condition and then paste it again, and instead of these rotations, let's move all our rotations over here. So when you detect this variable change, start circular graph, if it's 1, then you basically reset all the animations, and if it is 2, then you perform the actual rotation. So once we go back here, all we need to do is just to assign that specific variable. So when it's less than 20, what we need to do is to animate it. So we just assign the formula 2. Now just start animating it. Now when you go back to after 340, all you need to do is copy and paste this, move into condition, and then assign it to 1, and that should reset. So now when I go back into my preview and hit Command Shift R, and then when I move into here, the animation should reset, and when I come back, the animation should start. But the starting position is already skewed because when we start the page, let's assign this again to say 2. Let's start the animation. So whenever the scroll of graphs is greater than 340, it resets, and then when it starts, it animates. Let's go back here and preview this. It starts. When I jump back here, this animation happens, and when I come back, this animation starts again. So this is how you create reusable animations by using this variable. You can assign this variable from any point where you want to reset the animation or start the animation. All you need to do is assign to that respective value. So let's fix this bug as well, where it starts after a particular delay. So the solution is fairly simple. Let's take the scale and then put it here. So it resets when it's less than 20, and it animates when you scroll. So this is how you can play around with variables and trigger animations and make them reusable. So in the next video, we will learn how to implement the drag and drop interaction in Protopie. So I'll see you in the next video.